Good evening, and welcome to Having a Drink with Mink. I'm your host, Jason Mink. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being different. Thanks for saying yes. Okay, it means a lot to us that you tune in to our little dog and pony show, but there's no time for sentiment, not when there's so very much here to talk about. So let's get right to it. But first, I hope you have a nice beverage on hand. I know that I do. What could it be this week? Well, it's excellent, isn't it? Okay, we begin at the beginning. A long time ago, in a galaxy, well, maybe not so far away, Dr. Spock and his kooky crew of aliens, they cruised around the galaxy in what was essentially a modified Chevy, having wild adventures and just getting into all manner of shenanigans. And a little company called Mego decided, hey, we'd like a piece of that. All right, well, maybe that's not all entirely true. Don't go basing any term papers on it. But Star Trek was a popular television show from the 1960s. Maybe not so popular. It was canceled after 3 seasons, but it came back in syndication, bolstered by a Saturday morning cartoon, creating a whole new generation of fans. Mego felt this group of fans was ripe for exploitation. The company was looking to build on the success of its World's Greatest Superheroes line, and at the time, Star Trek was an inexpensive franchise to acquire. The figures were easy to produce to boot, created using the company's pre-existing 8-inch body, along with newly sculpted heads, clothing, and simple accessories. The first series consisted of 4 members of the Starship Enterprise: Captain James T. Kirk, Dr. Bones McCoy, my personal favorite, Mr. Scott, along with the line's most popular figure, Mr. Spock, and a Klingon for them to beat up on. Here's the Klingon now, having beamed down to some exotic planetoid. He's armed with a standard belt, communicator, and phaser, only the latter are molded in red. It's a minor difference, but red is certainly more aggressive than the baby blue of the Enterprise crew's accessories. He sports a brown leather tunic with 2 gold buttons at the top, giving him a more severe military appearance. While not screen accurate per se, it certainly suits this nameless warrior. Indeed, it would be so effective it would be reused for the Gorn in the future wave. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The character comes sans head wrinkles, as those didn't come along until the advent of the films. He has a clean, sharp appearance and is one of Mego's better head sculpts of the period. By 1975, perhaps he'd filed some complaints with HR, as he was tired of being the only one to womp on, and so Mego brewed up the Star Trek aliens. Kids saw characters like the aforementioned Gorn, Frank Gorshin's unforgettable Charon, the big-headed weirdie known as the Keeper, along with my personal favorite, the Neptunian. Now the sharp-eyed among you are thinking, wait a minute, Mink. I've seen every episode of Star Trek ever made, and I've never laid eyes on that winged booger. And hey, you're not wrong. The Neptunian never appeared on Star Trek, but I guess it could have, and that was enough for Mego. It was enough for me. I loved this figure as a kid, even though half the time I used him as a stand-in for the lizard. And there's an odd synchronicity there, as Mego used the same scale pattern for both the lizard's tail and the Neptunian's bodysuit. My stepfather was big on Star Trek, so these figures weren't a hard ask, and I ended up with the whole crew, the Enterprise playset, and a few aliens. I spent many an hour having fantastic adventures on lawns, concrete, or anywhere there was room for action, boldly going where no kid had gone before. From his floppy grandma underarms to his fevered dream of a horse head, the Neptunian is a big win for any Star Trek display, but he don't come cheap. Play the long game on him, unless one falls into your lap, and then watch out. He may just bite. Myself and many other Mego fans would love to see the company re-release the Neptunian along with the aliens that we did and didn't get. How about Vina, the Orion slave girl, or Clint Howard as the Tranya-loving Baylock? Okay, moving on from plastic to paper, because, that's pretty much how we do it here. And the first thing we're going to talk about is a book. And this was a book that initially I was super excited to get. This is The Monster Art of Basil Gogos. Now, for those of you familiar with Famous Monsters magazine, or, if you just haven't been living under a rock for 40 years, you've probably seen some of Basil's art. He's the foremost monster painter, and I've loved his work since I was a little kid. It was really my first introduction, to that world of nebulous kind of horror. Reality always seems so set and static, whereas Basil's artwork, tended to blend in with the background. There was kind of an ominous, potentiality about it, and so I've always wanted a collection featuring, the best of his covers, something like that. This isn't it. Now, I should have done my research, absolutely, but I thought, how could I go wrong? It's the monster artwork of Basil Gogos, but this is less a greatest hits and more of a book of technique. That was something that I discovered when reading the book, or at least attempting to read the book. The formatting on this is not so good. This text has a tendency to vanish into the spine, sadly, making it very, very difficult to, take in, and very, very tight. I'd hate to crack the spine and have the pages fall out for sure, but I figured, well, if I have to use the book as a glorified, picture book, that's exactly what I would do. I was just here for the artwork after all, and then I discovered that this was, in fact, not the greatest hits, but, a collection of Basil's. It was an emulation of his method, an exploration of how he created these paintings, from crumpled cocktail napkins, sketch paper, anything he happened to have, up to, the final renditions of some of these paintings, which is fantastic. That's great. I like the behind-the-scenes look at an artist and how they create things. We've done many a comments for breakfast on precisely that, but for all the problems with this book, they could be forgiven but for the reproduction. Some of the artwork in here is really, really lousy from a reproductive standpoint. If you're working with sketches, working with maybe not the best resolution sources to begin with, you have to know how large to make them. You can't make something, low-res, a full-page illustration. It's just going to look like crap when it comes right down to it. And this is not necessarily the most aesthetically appealing book. I'm not one to slam someone for trying, I'm not going to say it's half-assed. They very well have been using their whole ass, but doesn't really come through. If you're looking for a Monster Art of Basil Gogos book, the Monster Art of Basil Gogos might not be the book that you're looking for, so use some caution as a consumer. This is the rare variant, 1 of 100 covers. Doesn't really take the sting out of it, to be honest with you. But hey, we're not going to focus on the negative. That's the funny thing. We could, and we'd have a lot more views. It'd be easy to go the route of so many other YouTube channels and focus on the negative, promoting divisiveness and disharmony in the comics community. But that's not what I'm here for, and I'm guessing that's not what you're here for either. As the saying goes, old guys like a drink and a smoke and a wink and a joke. We're here for the laughs, to share in a common history, and enjoy the camaraderie. If you can, please support the channel by sharing this video. It can be on your page, in a group, or even just a link to that weird uncle who likes old comics. We're never going to ask you for money. All we ask is that you help raise our visibility a little bit so we can keep doing these videos. Okay, let's get right to it. We have some old comic books to show you, and we begin with The Amazing Adventures #1, featuring the X-Men. That's right. Now, I've been fishing these out of the dollar bin for a good long time, but I never see issue 1, and, it's that compulsive nature that you sometimes have as a comics fan. There's only 13 issues. I could complete that run. So I'm happy to have this. I'm not quite sure if I have them all, but do quite like them because they harken back to a time when comics were more fun. Here's Bobby Iceman Drake cutting up for his teammates after a stressful Danger Room session. It's nice to see that all that mutant angst hadn't manifested yet. Perhaps more interesting to some were the rarely seen reprints at the back of these magazines, and this is A Man Called X, and it's all about Professor X and how he got in good with the government, don't you know, because you're going to need to. When it comes right down to it, if you're planning on running a school for mutants, you're going to need some liaisons. Now, a couple of you have been asking for Archies. You're like, hey, I need my midge fixed, don't we all? So let's begin with Archie's Girls. This is Betty and Veronica #164, and it's a beach cover. Who doesn't like a beach cover, I ask you? And speaking of the beach, here's Ronnie, and she's getting ready for swimwear season, apparently, standing around looking at her own butt. Oh, yeah. Ronnie, you're one of a kind. And then what next? Here's some Archie's jokes. And, it's just like this kid, I don't really think he's going to change. Archie, he is a bit of a deadbeat, and he's always looking for a smooch. And who could blame him? A lot of smoochable gals in Riverdale. Have you seen that, Miss Grundy? You know what I'm saying? Arrgh. And then here's some Archie's Madhouse. Speaking of this guy, he's saying this Martian Tiger Man recommends his planet's gasoline. Yes, it's like putting a human into your tank. That might not be the worst thing we can do for some folk. We all have our place in this world. Some of us just happen to be fuel. And then here's the world's greatest comic magazine. This is 144. Here's one you don't see all that often. When Strikes the Sinister Seeker. Oh, yeah. And if Mego did a figure of him, they could use that exact same scale pattern. I'm not quite sure what they could do for that mouth there, but it chops, it dices, it makes mounds and mounds of coleslaw. And then attack! And here's Reed forming a bridge with his body so that his teammates can get away. I thought this was super odd because, well, yeah, he does it all the time, but you ever think, what if this is the last time? Like, what if I get stuck like this? What would you do in that case? Would you just stay there? Make people answer 3 questions to cross you? These are the things I stay up at night pondering. Here's Fantasy Masterpieces #4. And these are wonderful presentations from the Silver Age of Marvel. And they have the stories from the Golden Age of Marvel. So it's a great way of getting caught up if you're a fan back then or now. And what's on the inside? Why, no less than a Golden Age Captain America tale featuring Ivan the Terrible. He's about to eat that lady. And then here's some more Fantasy Masterpieces. I'm trying to get used to. I moved the box over here so there wouldn't be the glare from that, but I don't know. It's weird. It's Fantasy Masterpieces #6. And Captain America faces the greatest menace of all, the Red Skull. And I quite like that little date stamp. And then on the back, attention all superhero fans, here are the new Aurora model kits that you've been waiting for, featuring Spider-Man webbing up what appears to be Kraven melting into the floor. And then you got good old Captain America here and the Hulk skanking away. Oh yeah, he loves ska music, yes he does. And then Here's Captain America taking on the Red Skull. This originally appeared in Captain America number 7, and what I felt worth pointing out was how they made it a point to lean into the buffoonery. It's just like they really wanted to show that, Steve Rogers couldn't possibly be Captain America, and so he had him doing things like, knocking his drill sergeant into a big bed of petunias and then getting KP. Is it really worth all that? Surely the president can, write you a note or something. If Epstein's mom can write him a note, then Captain America should be able to get off. And then our final fantasy masterpieces of the night. This is issue number 11, and from the fabulous 40s, the long-awaited, much-demanded origin of Toro. The original Torch's flaming sidekick. That's right. If you like one flaming hero, then surely you'll love two. Or not. I don't really know that he took off as a character. Well, he took off, but, well, you know what I'm saying. And then here's Captain America number 7 in the Hotel of Death. I've stayed there. Wasn't really all that bad. Just don't get the breakfast and you'll be fine. And then on the inside here, we have this gorgeous Black Knight story by Stan Lee and Joe Maneely. And then here's some Ghost Rider. He's the most supernatural superhero of all. Some people might want to argue that point with you while you walk them right down to the newsstand. You show them this right here. They wouldn't be allowed to print it otherwise. Following on with some more Archie comics. This time it's Josie. And before she met up with the Pussycats, she was off in the American Southwest having weird equinox-style adventures. Apparently, here she is encountering some sort of bizarre green monster. That's what makes these early Josies so much fun, is they weren't confined to Riverdale. They were just a little off the beaten path. Speaking of off the beaten path, here's a book that a lot of people would turn their nose up at because, well, it is a bit sun-bleached. But there was something about that just really triggered something in me. I figured I had to give it a home. Comes right down to it, and I don't have this issue, so I think it's a win for both of us, really. If you were to take the amount of beach covers that Archie Comics produced over the years and laid them end to end, well, you'd probably ruin them. You shouldn't do that with comics. Here's one. This is Josie number 42, and this one actually looks like it may well have been lying out on the road for a while, but nonetheless, happy to have it. Here it is, that odd trend of teens wearing belts with their beach wear. I don't know. Whatever makes you comfortable, kids. And then what's going on the inside? It's the look you want when you want it. I have to admit, this, not real. I bought it from a comic book. And our final Josie issue of the episode, Josie wonders how to get some of those boys over to where she is. The best answers win prizes. Sadly, we don't get those answers, but, I will stay tuned. Then here's some Jughead. There's old Jug showing up at the drive-in. What do you mean I can't take it inside with me? You know what I mean? The system. Always trying to screw the little guy. And then on the inside, we got a story taking place in the very near future, talking about all the teams and the fascinating future inventions they have to look forward to. Jughead won't need to brush his teeth anymore, and the fashions will truly be out of this world. Here, Veronica is looking like she's rocking the latest from Venus, while Archie, well, he's still dressing like he's straight from Uranus. And then here's some more Jughead. These are always a kick in the pants for sure. The back specifically. On the back, we're looking for people who like to draw, says Norman Rockwell, but I don't think he was expecting that. Or maybe he was. He's Norman Rockwell. You got to figure he's been around the block. And some more Jughead. Man, I dig having a lot of wild colors at my fingertips. So do I. So when do you think Jughead got diabetes? Like at what age? And then, how about Miss Hip Swing? You know what I'm saying? Wow. All right. I'm ready to sign up for a few classes down at Riverdale myself. Night classes, of course. They don't let me in the school during the day anymore, obviously. Here's some Jughead's brand new jokes. Oh, I seriously doubt that. They're well-worn jokes, though, that's for sure. And for those of you who are suffering from midge withdrawal, this is a great little strip right here. Moose using his brain instead of his brawn for once. Here's some more Reggie's Wise Guy jokes. And I have to admit, I didn't even really notice what was going on up here at all. I was so excited at the prospect of a monkey in a tutu. You know, what can I say? I'm not the most sophisticated of audiences, but I do know what I like. And then on the inside, speaking of what we like here at the channel, there's another Midge and Moose tale. On this one, well, it's going to end badly, I think. You know, there's nothing worse than having the object of your affection wreck your toilet. All right, well, thank you once again for joining us on this episode of Having a Drink with Mink. T-shirts are back, and folks are buying them. Get yours at the link below. There's going to be some new designs offered in the next week or so. I'm really excited about it. Can't wait to show them to you. So, from all of us to all of you, cheers.